So I have a promo for us to do for Popping Collars, but I was too lazy to write something, so I had AI write it for us.
Oh no. I can't wait to do this.
What's all this direction?
There's a lot of direction.
There's a lot of adverbs.
The AI really wants us to work hard on this. Here I go, enthusiastically. Welcome to Popping Collars, podcast where religion and pop culture collide in the most unexpected ways. Join Greg, I guess me, join me, Betsy, Liz, and Ricardo as they explore everything from the profound to the playful with a little twist of mystery, literature, music, and drama. We're diving into the spiritual side of true crime novels. Liz, did you get into our algorithm here? How do faith and morality play out in the darkest stories?
Ever wondered if Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities has deeper religious themes? We'll break it down and maybe even compare it to a Pearl Jam song or two.
Whoa, they know us.
And when we dive into British period dramas like Downton Abbey or The Crown, we're asking, how do faith, power, and class intersect in those worlds? And that's true. We did do that.
It's not just about the big questions. We're also taking pop culture icons and how they tackle faith, redemption, and the meaning of life.
Do you want to do that again? Because I don't think we're taking the pop culture icons. We're talking about the pop culture.
I was busy being cheerful.
Yeah, he's really working hard.
So, brightly. I don't know what brightly means, so I'll just say it this way. So, whether you're into mysteries, literature, rock anthems, or Victorian tea parties, oh, this is so Anglican. Popping Collars has something for everyone. Subscribe now and join us every week for a fun, thoughtful ride.
That was great.
What a promo. Hello, everyone. My name's Greg Knight, and I like watching, thinking about, and talking about movies. One of the great things about starting your own podcast is that there are some days where you actually get to talk to the directors of those movies. This is one of those days. This month, I got the chance to talk to Alan Powell and Steve Barnett, the producer and director, respectively, of the film Valiant won. Letterboxd.com will tell you, with tensions between North and South Korea, a U.S. helicopter crashes on the north side. The survivors must work together to protect a civilian tech specialist and find their way out without the help of U.S. military support. What I'll tell you is that this film will feel familiar to military movies of the past, including things like Black Hawk Down or Behind Enemy Lines. I think that the premise of trading soldiers for specialists makes it a little unique. And the Korean dynamic is very interesting to see return after the fallout from the Sony Pictures computer hack like 10 years ago. As for my guests, Alan Powell is a co-founder of Monarch Media, an actor and a screenwriter of the faith-based film A Week Away. Steve Barnett is also a co-founder of Monarch Media and has worked as a studio executive for about 25 years, with producing credits on films like 300, The Marine 2, and even last year's Richard Linklater film Hitman, before stepping into the director role on this film. So what happens when a couple of entrepreneurial filmmakers take on a military movie with a twist? Find out when I keep things under the stole with Alan Powell and Steve Barnett. But before we chat, here's a trailer for the film.
Rockman!
Gear up. Great.
Let's focus on the mission.
Can we even call this a mission? We're gonna be on the ground for like 20 minutes.
Do you take anything seriously?
No. We have multiple dead, multiple wounded. We need a medevac right now.
They can't get us. We're in North Korea. So you're gonna have to get these people out of here.
Sir, respectfully, I'm trained to analyze data, not this.
Right now, you're the leader. So you gotta be that for them and for yourself. Don't let it end here.
We are going deeper into North Korea. Following a guy who has no idea what he's doing.
No matter how hard it gets, you stick your chest out.
No.
You keep your head up. And you handle it.
Is that supposed to be a pep talk?
It's Tupac.
Should we say fast?
Rockman, behind us.
You all seem pretty smart. Why choose this? Where I come from, there just isn't a lot of options.
Our country has given me so much, and I wanted to give back.
We're almost there.
Go! I'll buy you some time! Let's go home.
But I do like to start all of the conversations that I do for this show just to kind of get a sense of who you are and what your stories are. And one of the best questions that I've found to get at that is, what was it that happened in your life? Like, what was the moment that happened in your life that you were like, this is what I want to do. I want to tell stories. I want to make art. I want to get in the movie business. Steve, you want to kick us off?
I love that question, and I love that question because that moment finally came full circle like a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, maybe. I and it's connected to this film. So I got interested in the film business when I was probably 13. And the way I got interested in it, I have no family in this business, so it was really, but I lived in Southern California, so it's everywhere, but no real connection to it. Just a real interest in films, love films. I would read the LA Times Mondays and Tuesdays because I was so excited about the box office numbers. It was sort of like I was an athlete, so all of that for sure, but I would watch the box office numbers almost like people read box scores, right? And I was just really interested in what was working, what wasn't, as a fan of films. And I remember there was a profile piece on Touchstone Pictures at the time, way back in the day when it was just starting. And it was a big risk for Disney. They're going to do live action. They're known for animation. Will it work? Their first film out of the gate was this, cute little fantasy called Splash. And if you remember that film with Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah. And it was a new filmmaker named Ron Howard and a young producer named Brian Grazier. And I remember just being completely wrapped up in this story. And they would do like a little thing every Tuesday, and they'd tell a little bit more about how the movie got made and how Brian Grazier had failed 4,000 times or something like that to try and get this thing made. And it was finally happening. And it was just a big risk for Disney. So I was so hooked by the stakes, And then when I saw the movie's great, and the rest is history. But the reason I said it's full circle is because when we were at the Army Navy game for this film, we were lucky enough to go to a tailgate at General George. He's the top guy at the Army. We were invited to his house for a tailgate, and Brian Grazier walks in. Of all the people, right? His son's a cadet, so he was invited for that reason. And I shot my shot, man. I went up to him and I was like, "You are the reason I'm standing here right now.
Wow.
Reason that I pursued this business." And then we just had some chit chat, whatever. And he called me a couple weeks ago, and I had the opportunity to tell him the story I just told you. And I said, "Man, thank you for that, because I've been waiting 30 years to tell you that story." So there you go. That's how I got into the film business.
How about that? Touchdown. Wow. All the way back to Touchdown.
All the way back.
What about you, Alan? What got your love for this thing going?
almost as a cliche, I've always been deeply impacted by film in a way that really nothing else could kind of reach me emotionally. And my foray into filmmaking was, I don't know, 12, 13 years ago, started as an actor. And I just got the bug. And once I certainly got the acting bug, but really like my first day on set, I was just like everything was fascinating to me, right? Like watching the things happen for the first time. Oh, that's how they do the thing. And like just I remember I was acting and we were flipping the world as they say, which means we're going to shoot the other side of the scene and everybody's moving stuff. And I went over and I grabbed the C stand and you're not supposed to do that as an actor. You gotta let other people do their job. And I remember just the guy was like, cool, let's just do the thing. I just loved every aspect of filmmaking. So I've always been moved by the medium, but then the fascination with this part of the business, making films, happened really from my first day on set that I was just accidentally, I don't even know what I was doing there. As an actor, just fell in love with every part of it. The idea that you could tell a story, develop a story, beat it up, try to make it as good as you can, and then bring on a lot of other incredible artists and let's all tell this story together. And how do we make that even better? And like, oh, we had this idea, but your idea is even better, all with the same intention of making a great film, making a great TV show, whatever, making a great piece of art that people can consume and be impacted by. Man, I'm addicted to it. So it's such a pleasure to be able to do it.
I'm not an industry podcast, and I do want to get to the movie first, but like I'm curious about the production company that you guys started because it's pretty new, right? Monarch Media. Like, what is the vision for this? How did you guys get together on this company?
Yeah, Alan, I'll let you talk about the vision, but I'll tell the story real quick about how we ended up getting together. We have friends in common. I made a movie years ago called Priceless, and Alan comes from that space as well, and was basically out pitching a project called Church Camp, and he was in town. He's also an actor. He was in town for pilot season, I think it was, and wanted to hang out. And we hung out. I said, "Come over to the house. I'm gonna grill. I hope you like red meat because we're doing that." And he came over and we hung out till like 2 a.m. talking about films and stuff he was doing, the things I have done, and all just it was just an awesome night. And that night we decided to do that project Church Camp together, which became A Week Away, which is on Netflix. And he called me a little bit after we decided to do this. He goes, "I think I have somebody who might want to invest in this." And I was like, "Okay, give that person a call and see if they want to do it." And I think he called back like 45 seconds later and was like, "She wants to do it." And I was like, "Really? What budget number?" He's like, "Ooh, yeah, I should probably bring that up." Called back, gave her the number. He called me right back and said she's in. And then we had the meetings and all the things to solidify that deal. And then he got a call from Vicky Patel, who's our third partner at Monarch and the investor in the company, and she wanted to do more than one film. She wanted to make movies. And so our suggestion was, let's form a company. That way you're not just a bank cutting checks, but you have a seat at the creative table and you can protect your investment that way. And frankly, have fun. It's the greatest job in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest is history. We got together, pitched her a company and a whole plan, and we all agreed and formed Monarch. And vision-wise, Alan, you can jump in, but I think that we are pretty picky when it comes to the movies we want to do. Obviously, Hitman is very different than A Week Away. Hitman is very different than Journey to Bethlehem. Valiant 1 is very different than Journey to Bethlehem. But I think one of the things that's pretty consistent among all those projects is it's either a reluctant hero story, it's finding something deep inside yourself that's good, that allows you to move forward for a greater good. I would say that is a pretty consistent theme that we believe is important to put out in the world. We're never going to do horror. We're never going to do like violent horror. We're never going to do anything that doesn't have some sort of human element to it that is of value. We're in production on a comedy right now with Seth Rogen, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and Bryan Cranston, Sarah Silverman, Wanda Sykes. The cast is incredible on a dark comedy about Alzheimer's. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's an issue that touches almost everyone. and we believe humor is the best medicine. So we decided to jump in and do an animated film about Alzheimer's. And I'll tell you what, it's special. It's going to be incredible. It'll be done at the end of the year. So, we're not just going to do Christian films. We're not going to just do dark comedies. We're not going to just do. We're doing all kinds of movies that have some sort of core to them that is, finding what's special about you and moving forward.
Couldn't have said it better. All that. I love it.
Yeah, this is like Alan's best interview. It's like ditto to all that.
Yeah, man. What he said.
He's usually the one doing all that. So
I know.
I'm literally stealing all of his stuff now. He's like, wait a second, I made that.
Let me ask one other industry thing. I promise we'll get to the movie. Let me ask one other industry thing, which is like, I love the idea that you brought up this idea of diversifying your portfolio a little bit as far as movies, right? Because it's like it's easy to kind of get once you start down the faith-based, movie track, it's easy to get pigeonholed as a faith-based studio, which comes with its own expectations from viewers, right? So if I see like an Angel Studios production, I kind of generally know what kind of movie I'm going to get and what they're kind of pushing on their end. Whereas if you're willing to mix it up a little bit, have some faith-based, have some other, right? You're not necessarily known as the Christian guys, like moving forward. It's like, yeah, that's a little bit, but we also have this other stuff, right?
Yeah, I would say like I think there's two parts. I mean, there's a distribution side of that, like Angel Studios being a distribution company back in the day when it was still a thing, Pureflix being a distribution company. Like I think on the distribution side, you really do have to have that relationship with the audience so they know what to expect. When they buy one of your movies, go see one of your movies. And to a certain extent on the studio side, the production producers side, there's an element of that has worked for a lot of filmmakers that they've been, you think of the Kendrick brothers, you think of the Erwin brothers with Kingdom Story. And that's great. Affirm as an example, we did a picture with them. That's just not our vibe. Like that,
Right.
that aspect of it is not what we're aspiring to do. We're aspiring to be a studio financing production company that makes really quality stuff that we believe can work in the marketplace, but also has an important reason to exist. Something that, as Steve said, is a human element that hopefully is somehow inspiring and, dare I say, makes the world better in some capacity. So we don't feel the need to be certainly only faith-based, but we also don't feel the need to avoid it. If there's a story that we feel like is meaningful and worth it, it's one of the things that we feel fortunate of. Like we can move in and out of that. We hope that like our watching a Monarch Media production, that means it's going to be, and the end of that is good. Like we hope that that's the end of the sentence kind of always and almost exclusively. So 5 years in and it's been going well so far.
Yeah, I feel like it's always kind of it's always something that comes with you into the room, like, and it's a larger conversation, I think, about entertainment, which is, if you self-identify as faith-based, does it naturally come with an agenda, or can the art sort of speak for itself? Can it just be an honest portrayal of sort of, a human story?
People like to look backwards and work backwards, I think. And when the creatives do that, then man, you end up with really bad stuff. Meaning like, oh, this is what the audience wants. This is what they've responded to before. So we need to do that. Well, that's not creativity. I mean, the films that are great, and this is not just films. I think it's music, it's art. The artists are doing what moves them. The artists are doing what they want to do, and you end up with this thing that impacts people because we're impacted by art and by humanity being human. So a lot of times, and it happens a lot in faith content, there's this, we have to do this and we have to do it in this way because this has worked before, or because this is all the faith audience wants, and that's a box that I don't think exists. We have gone back to that well time and time and time again as content creators. And truthfully, I think the audience is getting tired. A lot of them are dying because it's typically an old audience. So again, we're excited we're going to interact with the faith space because that is interesting to us. But hopefully in a way that, again, we can hold our heads high as creatives and go, no, we put story first, we put the creative first. And this isn't call it message driven vehicle
Yeah.
where that's the number one aim. The number one aim is to make a story that is human, that is honest, and it will impact the audience. We trust that it will impact the audience that way.
Yeah, I would add to that authenticity, especially for Valiant One, authenticity was a major factor too. You know, when you're telling anything that is dealing with the military and the men and women in uniform, you gotta be honest about it. You have to make it authentic, or it's just offensive and cheesy.
Hmm.
So, you know, we tried very hard to make this movie as authentic as possible. So much so that, you know, it was inspired by, how about that as a segue into the movie? It was inspired by my high school buddy who we ran into each other, reconnected at our high school reunion, and you know, he was like an edgy kid, and I was a jock. Like, we
Yeah.
were friends, but we didn't hang out, and we saw each other at the high school reunion. And he's like, "I'm a Navy SEAL," and I was like, "What? That's insane! You got to tell me stories." So we got together for coffee, and he was telling me all these crazy, you know, Navy SEAL stories. And he said, but there was one mission where I was like, this is it. This is where this is the moment I'm gonna die. And I'm like, tell me more. You know, I want to know what that was like. And he said it was the dumbest mission ever. Like, we were just escorting a Raytheon tech to Patriot missile installations along the DMZ. And we hit weather and we almost crashed in the DMZ, almost got pushed into North Korea. And I was like, well, what would have happened if you did? He goes, well, we probably would have got shot out of the sky because that's an act of war. But had we crashed, we're Navy SEALs, we would have found our way out. And I was like, well, of course. Well, what if the Navy SEALs didn't make it, leaving just the tech soldiers who don't have combat skills at all? And this, you know, Raytheon tech, he's like, well, they'd be in trouble because there's no way to evacuate. There's no exfil in North Korea. Like, you're on your own. You're going to get captured, likely, if you don't die. I was like, boom, there's the movie. The movie is an underdog story about a tech soldier who doesn't want to be a leader, wants to just do his job, get out, go make money in Silicon Valley. And now he's thrown into the middle of the highest stakes possible. You know, you're dealing with a country that has nuclear warheads.
Hmm.
So it just, everything kind of fell into place after I heard Todd's story.
Well, okay, so you just did something amazing, Steve, which is that not only did you segue to your movie, you actually answered the first question that I had about your movie, which is the choices that you made. I was wondering, like, why the choice for Korea when a lot of what we've been thinking of, especially over the last 20 years, when we think of military engagement, has been enduring freedom and Iraqi freedom stuff, right? And so that's helpful to know, like, why you said it there. In Korea.
It was set there. Sorry to interrupt, but it was set there when we started this process about 14 years ago, right? We were green lit. The movie was going about 12 years ago, maybe I forget exactly, but and then if you remember, there was a Seth Rogen movie called The Interview.
Yeah.
That did not get theatrical released because Sony got hacked, the North Korean government, whether that's true, who knows? But Sony got hacked and emails got out and it was bad. And they decided to shelve the movie. And so our movie, we were doing it with CBS Films. Viacom was going to make it. And they're like, yeah, no, we're not going to open we're not going to be exposed to that kind of whatever blast from North Korea. So it died. So we then shifted to the Ukraine. We called some people in the Defense Department. They're like, yeah, the place you should be thinking about is Ukraine. There's tunnels. There's all the same problems. Russia's there. So we did a draft in Ukraine, and we never really got it off the ground. And then when we started Monarch, we dusted off the Korean version. I rewrote it, and then we went and got cast and went and made it. So we'll see what the North Koreans do now. We're in trouble, but
I think you're far enough away from the interview that I think you're okay, right? Like, Amy Pascal's moved on to something else at this point, so it's all right. The other choice that I was really curious about, I feel like, you know, when it comes to military movies, especially military movies when your back's up against the wall, everyone kind of has preconceived ideas of what that looks like because we've sort of seen it in film, whether it be like Black Hawk Down or even like segments of Saving Private Ryan, right? Where you're having to move from one set piece to another and survive as a group. Was there one sort of inspiration that you took for this particular film where you're like, oh, I want it to kind of feel like this other thing so that people know what it is that they're going into when it comes to the story.
There were a lot of references. When I first sat down with Chase Stokes, I'd put together a visual, like a sizzle reel, basically that covered things like the way camera movement, color, just sort of every aspect of it, performance. So yeah, I mean, movies obviously Saving Private Ryan, one of my favorite films of all time. I love that film. But even Children of Men, the way that movie is shot with the frantic handheld and you're following your main character in a oneer, like that kind of stuff. I just love that in terms of storytelling. So yeah, there were lots of references that I sort of leaned on when we got into prep and shot the film.
Walk me through a little bit of the military aspects of this, and you can probably speak to this too, Alan, as like on the production end of things. So I understand that the inspiration for the story comes from your high school buddy, but do you have like military background? And if not, like, do you bring in military consultants on this film to like help you block everything, do the action
Yeah,
pieces?
I don't, but my high school buddy was the tech advisor on the movie. So he was there every single day. He was there from the first day of pre-production all the way through rehearsals, all the way through production. So yeah, I mean, it was an awesome experience to start this thing with him so many years ago at our high school reunion to wrapping on our very first day with Todd, and it was awesome, man. And I'll just tell you, he was so valuable to the show that for authenticity and all the things I mentioned, we literally made him a T-shirt that says "Let's ask Todd," because we would say that 100 times a day. I don't know. Let's ask Todd.
Yeah.
So he kept us honest.
I wonder if there's stuff that was in the script that had to be changed because of the tech advice.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up. Sorry, Alan, I'm hogging this whole interview, but
Hey, I was like, yeah. Remind me of what those things are, Steve. No,
no, I'm glad you brought it up because you got to read the comments on these. We posted the trailer from the very beginning. It was really successful, all the things, and there's like one comment that drove me crazy. Right? It was they couldn't even get a real Black Hawk, and I was like, okay, fair enough, but. When we shot, the one thing I didn't know about Canada is you're not allowed to use Blackhawks. So we were like 2 weeks out from shooting, and they're like, "Hey, yeah, we got some bad news. The Blackhawks, it's illegal here. You're not allowed to use a vehicle that's being used currently by their own military. You can't do it." So I sat down with Todd, who had been on these missions, again, inspired by his mission. He's like, we didn't use Blackhawks that often. Like we'd use anything. I jumped in an ambulance helicopter to go on a mission. Like they will literally use any helicopter that fits the mission. Doesn't have to be any specific thing. So I didn't comment to the comment, but I really wanted to, knowing the truth that from my good friend who literally lived it. He's like, dude, we used any helicopter that was available to get us up and get us down and get it done. So that was the only thing that changed.
I always like talking to directors about actors, like how you work with actors and stuff. There is a lead to this movie, and Chase Stokes is, great, I think, in that lead role. But in a lot of ways, once you get into the action pieces, it becomes a bit of an ensemble. How do you create this group dynamic in how you direct these folks, especially when you're telling a story about survival, when it has to be like your life depends on these other people doing what they're supposed to do? How do you create sort of that family dynamic, that brotherhood dynamic amongst your actors?
Oh, well, we brought them in early, so we had some time for them to rehearse together. We went through the entire script, rehearsed a lot. I was surprised to hear that they hadn't done much of that on all the other things that they did, that they had performed in. But honestly, I think we started it off the right way. In terms of building that dynamic, we went into pre-production pretty close to the right after the Rust tragedy, the Alec Baldwin, New Mexico unfortunate situation. So we, using blanks was a very serious topic at the time. It was very, very serious. I was I was worried about it, and frankly, I was kind of against using actual live rounds. But my buddy Todd, our Navy SEAL friend, and he said, you know, what you should do is day one when they get here, let's go to the shooting range, let them hold the weapon, let them understand it. Let's do the whole lesson. Let's explain to them how to carry it. Just explain everything top to bottom. Let them shoot it, and then let them decide. I was like, that's exactly the way we're going to do this. Let them decide. And the five main characters in our ensemble were all there that day, and it was a great icebreaker for them to get in the gun range and shoot an M4. I mean, that's a crazy weapon.
Mm-hmm.
And we sat down as a team, and I said, guys, it's your choice. I'll back whatever you want. If you want to go digital, we'll do digital. If you guys want to use the live, 3/4 rounds, I think that's what we used. We'll do that too. And I promise you'll be safe. And they felt safe after meeting our armorer, after being there with Todd, feeling the weapon and understanding that the juice that they would get, the energy that they'll get for their performance when they're pulling that trigger and it explodes is I don't know that you can replace it. I mean, they're good actors, but there's something really special about using that in their performance, and I think it shows. So yeah, that was how we started it, and from that point on, these kids, they call them kids, they're so much younger than me, but these guys, this group, Lana, Jonathan, Daniel, Chase, and Dez, they had Thanksgiving together. They would go out together. They were a family, so it was cool.
One other thing on the production end, and this is, I got to wrap up my time, so I'm really grateful for you guys taking the time to do this with me today. But Alan, I've noticed that, between Hitman and some of your other pieces that you've had come out, the camp movie that you had, a lot of those have been on Netflix. Do you guys have like a good relationship with Netflix? Is that where this movie is ultimately going to end up? Is this going to theaters? Like, how does that relationship work between you guys and Netflix distribution?
So for Valiant One, obviously most importantly right now, theatrical, January the 31st will be in theaters all over the country. So we're very excited about that. Will it end up on Netflix at some point in a different window? Certainly possible. We don't know, but right now that's obviously our focus. It's been, I don't want to say random, but to a certain extent it has. I mean, we made a movie independently and a week away that, we took to the town, and Netflix bought it and released it as an original. So of course, then you build relationships based on that dynamic. Steve's been in the industry for a long time, so he already has a lot of those relationships. And as industry professionals bounce around. So there's people that Steve's been working with forever that were over there at the time and are there now, and now they've left. And with regard to Hitman, I mean, Richard Linklater makes a movie, everybody's going to want to,
Right.
see it. One of the
Glenn
fun
Powell's
things,
in a movie. Yeah.
we took that thing to Venice, went to Toronto, Sundance. Like, I mean, that was such a cool opportunity for us. And we certainly read the script, when it came in. But when you get like hey, there's this movie Linklater's making that Glenn Powell's a star of, you guys want to jump in and finance? I don't think we finished that sentence before we were like, yeah, let's get it. It just so happened that it was a great script and he's a great filmmaker. So really fortunate to be on that ride. That ends up at Netflix for the same reason. So we can't say much about it. We did just put another film over at Netflix in a different capacity early on. Like we'll do production with them. So, building relationships with that particular distribution company is hugely, advantageous. I think it's the biggest in the game, as everybody knows. So we're fortunate to have those relationships and have those email addresses, as it were, and be at those premieres with those guys because of the partnerships that we've had. So it's an open door that we're excited to be able to explore when it makes sense.
I know if you make a movie, you want your movie to screen in theaters. I get it, right? But at the end of the day, if you're up on Netflix, you've got potentially billions of people that can watch your movie, right? So it's like, where do you ultimately kind of like to see your movie go?
Project to project. I mean, it's the way you build. Like Valiant One to me is a great example. I mean, that to me is an event. We call it an event movie. Something that if you want to go in the theater, experience, everything that Steve has put together from a storytelling perspective, a sound design perspective, like it's kind of an all-encompassing experience. So we're really excited that people are going to get the opportunity to do that theatrically. And then to your point, for the sake of eyeballs and as many people as possible watching the film, yeah, we'll find a great streaming partner so that people have access to that. So I think it's just project to project. I mean, ultimately, there's two things you want to happen, right? You want to be able to make your money back so you can keep making movies, and then you want a lot of people to watch it. So whatever capacity distribution plan gets those two boxes checked, you run at those things as hard as you can, and hope you get lucky.
Yeah, I feel like it's a fascinating changing landscape that's out there, and it's like there are temptations sort of on all sides as far as like, what it is that you want to do. And so, yeah, I'll be curious to see kind of how it spins out into the future. And I'll be looking for what you guys have coming up in the future. So before we wrap, Valiant 1 in theaters, January 31st. Check your local listings. And
across the country, it'll be in every well, not every city across the country, but it'll be on, I think, over 1,500 screens nationwide. So
awesome.
It'll be up there.
Awesome. Steve, Allen, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. And congratulations on the film.
Thank you.